I needed to make this video because I need people to understand that there has been a systematic attack on truth, and all of the Epstein files, all of the police brutalities, all of the threats of war in Iran and all this stuff are distractions, right? They're distracting us from the fact that all this systematic stalking and chaos, payments of tracking folk and what is it called? The word tracking is in it, but there's another word that I'm looking for. Surveillance and tracking, systematically doing that to truth tellers and anybody who stands against the lies, historical lies. All these systems have come into play. They even online get these so-called Native American groups who are direct descendants of Siberians and Chino slaves, Austrian, Ukrainian converts, so-called Jew folk, people who will orchestrate different, because you're telling the truth, different things. I was looking online for all the people. I was watching this lady on YouTube who was talking about how people get paid to stand in the elevator. People get paid. A man confessing online that he get paid to create traffic jams. People admitting to being paid to stalk people, to cause car accidents, to cause like drama in stores. They even have police officers getting paid to do it. They have detectives paid to do it. Just a lot of payments to distract people from the truth, and to intimidate economically, systematically, truth tellers. It's been happening for years. This is not new. They not new to this. They true to this. Okay? And so I wanted to talk about all the history that they've been lying. Like right now, what we're seeing is them incentivizing the transatlantic slave trade narrative. Right now, they're trying to incentivize it to quiet the economically stressed so-called black community due to all of the mass incarceration, ticketing, force, police profiling for ticketing to cause economic disparity through mass incarceration and routine traffic violations, motor vehicle infractions. And so this is how they're furthering their agenda to keep you economically handicapped, by creating these avenues for truth tellers to be silenced economically. If they can't kill you, they will try to defamate your character, make you crazy, follow you, stalk you, intimidate you, all of this stuff because you're telling the truth. Look what they did to Kanye West. Call you crazy. Crazy is dismissive, right? They're crazy is dismissive. It's like calling somebody stupid. It's dismissive. Everybody is capable of learning, right? So what is the issue that is causing somebody to be stupid? So everybody has a mind. Has a mind to think and reason, right? Because God gave it to them. So what is the factor that is causing them to be crazy, if you want to say one is crazy, right? So y'all have to understand what is going on, why they need all the distractions. I talked about this in a previous video of where Donald Trump was like, put out the Epstein files, start a war. I don't care. Just don't let this information get out, right? And everybody was like, oh, he talking about the Epstein file. No, he said release the Epstein files. So he's clearly not talking about that, right? What is it that he's trying to cover up? It's the history. Why do you think now they keep trying to figure out how to use the National Guard, police officers, vigilante groups, foreigners, the Army, and ICE on how to deliberately undermine the identity of black people? There are a lot of black people waking up to the truth. As I told you, that's what woke really means, right? There are a lot of black, and there are also white people. And I was saying this, for every truth teller they silence, every truth teller that they kill, if they kill 20, 40 will be birthed. If they kill 2, 4 to 8 will be birthed, because God said knowledge would increase on the earth. So for every truth teller they silence or kill, more will be born. And I don't mean in a physical sense of birth. I mean that birth and also coming into enlightenment, right? More people of every nationality and every race will be birthed into the truth. They will start to reject the historical lies. They will not understand why the narrative that's spinning don't sit comfortable with them. They do not understand why it's not comfortable. They do not understand why they're rejecting it, because they don't know that God is putting into them the truth, right? If the devil be the lie and God be the truth, then the lie will never prevail, because God is truth, right? He is all things righteousness. And so, therefore, people are not understanding why so many people are waking up to this new knowledge of the identity of black people. I just learned this a couple of weeks back, where this black guy went on social media, and even this white guy went on social media, and he was talking about how black people are the number one search topic was black people and their identity. And I said, that's funny, right? Because that was never, ever a topic of a couple of years back. 2019, 2018, 2020 even, 2021, 2022. The topic of our nationality never happened. I feel like God does all things for a reason, right? It's orchestrated and lined up precisely in exactly how he wanted it to be. People did not understand then, but black people understood then why they were not doing due process for immigrants. And that's what really sprung up the influx of black people doing actual genealogical research of their family. Is because foreigners were asking the question, well, if all people who were living in America, whether far back or not, all immigrants are being detained and deported, why are black people not being detained and deported? And the questions started flooding in, and some people would tell you, oh, because they're descendants of slaves and it was a long time ago, so therefore they don't qualify. They are, I forgot what Donald Trump said. He said something about like being natural citizens of some crap. And that was, again, that was blanketed to not really answer the question, right? Calling somebody African that's dark skinned is blanketed the same way calling everybody who's white Europeans all are white, right? It's blanketed. So when he made that statement, is so that he didn't have to explain the truth about black people's identity in America and how it has absolutely nothing at all to do with Africa. And so people don't know about the Nipmuc, I don't know how to say their name, the Nipmuc American Indian, because they were erased. They don't know about many indigenous tribes that were black folk, because there was a systematic erasure. They talk about a slave trade that they cannot produce verifiable evidence for, primary sources like embarkation, disembarkation, manifest records. They cannot find any trace of slave ships being purchased or paid for by any privateer groups, They cannot find any insurance companies, any insurance articles or itemized documentation of any such slave ships. They cannot find any verifiable records to support that we are transatlantic slave trade Africans. Yes, they will have people bother you, orchestrate a lot of this stuff as a result of you being a truth teller. You can bet your bottom dollar that. They do not like the truth. The truth is a liar's kryptonite. And so, because this topic has come up, they have now tried ways such as starting in Europe, coming into America to incentivize the transatlantic slave trade narrative through reparations or promises of reparations. And I say that white people should push back against that. Why should white people pay reparations for an atrocity that did not exist? Let me say that again. Why should white America pay reparations for an atrocity that never exists? You have white people who have white guilt for slavery that they never partook in. Family never owned a white slave. A black slave. Never owned one. Never fed any of our babies to crocodiles. Never did anything. What reparation is owed for is burning down and bombing our communities. Bustling, technologically advanced communities that were systematically burned and bombed by white immigrants, right? The changing of our identity and the 1924 Racial Integrity Act, while simultaneously handing our identity to Siberian and Southeast Asians, Ukrainian and Slavic, our Ukrainian converts, Slavic Austrian counterparts and people, and making them American Indian, redlining our communities, peddling drugs in our communities, systematic medical malpractice experiments gone wrong, stealing our DNA, using it as experiments and cures and not compensating us for it, stealing patents and inventions and not compensating us for it, land that was millions of acres of land stolen from us, lynchings, mass incarceration, and systematic policing and police brutality and ticketing that causes generational financial disparities in black communities. Outlawing reading and writing in our own languages so that our languages are now deceased. Systematically placing false leaders, terrorist groups and organizations into our community, foreigners and even well-paid actors into our communities, then murdering them and dismantling systems of black people wanting to their human rights honored. This is what you owe reparations for, not slavery. Do you understand? This is what you owe reparations for. Slavery is not it, because you yourself came via Ellis Island in 1840s and the influx in 1892 as indentured servants. Many of you, the small amount of you that came over in 1840 were released from your indentures, right? The couple of million of you, to be exact, that came in 1840s were released from your own indentures in 1865. You can research, in fact, find this. Your Ellis Island Manifest documented 12.4 million Slavic, Siberian, white, if you want to call it, people came to Ellis Island. The same 12 million that you keep pretending like came via transatlantic slave trade. That was you. You destiny swapped. You never got us in 8 million, 12 million, or any million, nor 300,000 or any such number from Africa. The transatlantic slave trade is all fake. That is why you should not be paying reparations for the transatlantic slave trade. I do combat that and I do say that every white person should fight against paying reparation for a slavery that never took place. You have the wrong kind of guilt. Your ancestors did not own our ancestors. Anybody telling you that, you should beat their ass. They are lying on your grandparents. And I'm not there lying on your great-great-grandparents. They are lying. And I don't care if they're black people saying that. Whoop their ass because they're lying to you. You did not own any such slaves. And you do not owe reparations for that. And that is a black person in America telling you matter-of-factly that I know it because I studied it. Your ancestors did not own ours. There need not be white guilt for something that never took place. Now, if you are a white person pressing the transatlantic slave trade for a white supremacist narrative, you are against your own people. Who would make someone feel guilty about a history that never happened? Never. And not only would you make your people feel guilty about something that never happened, you then tell them to come out of pocket for something that never happened, for a false sense of superiority. You are insane. Now, they do owe reparations, not for slavery. Again, systematic malpractice, medical malpractice, police brutality, policing, ticketing to cause economical disparities in black community, redlining, right? Gaslighting with historical narratives of white supremacy, transatlantic slave trade, erasers of our identity, 1924 Racial Integrity Act, right? Come on. Flint, Michigan, poisoning the water and food supply. Come on, we could keep going. You owe reparations for burning and bombing our cities, bustling, technologically advanced cities, burning them down, flooding them under miles and feet of water. This is the reason why you owe reparations. Has absolutely nothing to do with the transatlantic slave trade. Because your ancestors never transatlantic slave trade anybody. No matter how many times we tell this truth, it is being lost in translation due to them weaponizing and incentivizing Pan-Africans, black white nationalist groups such as the church. Yes, I said what I said. White supremacist groups, Native American / Siberian, Southeast Asian pretendian converts, all to stay under the system that keeps the land from the hands of black people and keeps our identity hidden. They knew that there would come a day and a time where God would bring up a people. They knew the people they knew that it would start with women and end with men. That's why they always have systems to oppress black women more than any women, because they knew that we would be the start of a new revelation. A start of truth-telling that will not be unrecognized and cannot be unheard. They knew that we would one day get up and know the truth. It started with our men. And now here we are. The digging, the findings, the facts. Not only are there black men and women who are finding out these truths, there are foreigners and immigrant citizens alike, from Asian to so-called white folk, Hispanic, Latinos, and even some Native Americans, and even Jews, who are coming out with the truth of black people's identity. They're trying to silence it. They're trying to make people crazy. All this, what you call that, this alien talk, reptilian garbage, all of this satellite storms, all these things, wars, they're just distractions, even if they are in the physical sense. Diseases, all distractions, because the truth is coming out. They also owe us reparation for systematic disease, chemical warfare. Systematic character defamation. They assassinate black people's character. If they cannot control you, they assassinate your character. They also owe us reparations for that. All of these systems that were orchestrated to keep us out of our identity, keep the truth from the rest of society, even after we have sat back with all evidence, even when we pull up all evidence of black people being American Indian, even if we show these Mongolian, Siberian, Southeast Asian types who they are, even after showing them who they are not with a substantial amount of evidence, still they suffer from cognitive dissonance. They go on a smear campaign of one's character, credibility, lies and slander, torture, psychological torture, physical torture, murder, all in hopes that the truth does not get out. And they even in Europe decided to incentivize. I don't know if you guys saw, I saw it on Instagram, I meant Facebook, about the UN, the UK, what did I say? How they are now trying to compensate and incentivize for the slave trade. Why are they doing this? Because the truth is out about black people being American Indian. While the truth is simultaneously being brought out about black people being American Indian, what is also being revealed is that black people were the original European. And due to the fact that these white people do not want to get off any of these lands because they cannot go to Ukraine anymore and they can't go to Russia because Putin will not allow it. Stephen Darby, God rest his soul, he talked about this. This man is prophetic. He died back in, I think 2016, 2017, and prophesied the war with Ukraine in Russia, and how those converts from Ukraine who call themselves Jews will not be able to go back. So what they will do is fight against the Aboriginals of America to maintain their standing in America and Europe, because they have no home to go back to. So they constantly pay foreigners to pretend to be FBA or black people. They then incentivize them. Black and white nationalist Christian groups who also are Pan-Africans they just don't do any research on their own and are indoctrinated. The Native American, Siberian, and Chino slaves, if you will, counterparts, they incentivize them to fight with us online, even when we give facts and truth. These people will stop at nothing to continue to stay on stolen land. They do not want to recompense black people according to the land that they stole. They do not want to recompense black people for the identity that they changed and took. They only will continue lying, even when all the evidence support that they're lying. We have many, Camario Ahu, Dane Calloway, 40 to the Trop Radio. I forgot the guy, something files that Camario works with, have all been figures who are historians that have done a substantial amount of research with hard facts to support that black people in America are not African, but are American Aboriginals, and some mix with black Europeans. They have went on a smear campaign of these people. They will not ever do a debate live to discuss the identity of black people in America. They will never do any real genealogical research. As a matter of fact, they close off some of the research areas to distort records. You will see, I was speaking to Ancestry.com because I saw whiteout on some of the historical records. And I asked Ancestry.com about some of the historical records and how these documents have whiteout. And she said that's illegal. Nobody could use whiteout. And I went with her on these records, and I showed her where I was, and she went with me, and I showed her where these records have been whited out, and she said that's illegal. She said she saw what I saw, and she goes, that's illegal. Nobody should be whiting out or changing any such files. We also went over how write-overs, where people were classified as Indian in the 1800 census, where it was written over with Negro or black or mulatto. Whiteout was used for ethnicity changers. You understand me? And I'm not just talking about for American Indian. This is a common misconception that only American Indian were reclassified. No. There were many people who weren't American Indian, such as some of my ancestors, who were foreigners, black Europeans, who in fact were also systematically erased during the 1924 Racial Integrity Act. And this is not talked about. This is why they are incentivizing Pan-Africans, Europeans, and different groups to continue the lie of black Americans' identity, because they do not want to give the land back. And at the beginning, I started this topic off talking about all of these people getting payment to create chaos, to create traffic holdups and pileups, and just being paid to stalk or harass systematically. And why did I mention that? These are all distractions. These are all distractions. These are all not only distractions, but manipulation, witchcraft tactics to keep people from the truth. Intimidation tactics. So that if you are a truth teller, they don't like that you are telling the truth. So they began group stalking. Little silly things like that to keep from the truth being told, which means that they are very aware of the truth. They're very aware of the identity of black people. They have known for quite some time that black people are American Aboriginal and that some are mixed with black Europeans and are in fact Aboriginals to Europe. They do not want the records out, so they are now incentivizing by reparation the transatlantic African slave trade. It is convenient that now that we are fact-finding evidence of our indigenous roots, that now they want to give reparations. I find that funny because for the past 100 years, white people fought against reparation and say, we will not pay you for something that happened years ago. Will not now, for it to be brought up in congressional or legislative office and settings and in, you know, back behind closed doors and now in face, you know, having meetings and meetups and, you know, about this is laughable to me because you guys were hard on, stiff as a rock about not compensating for the transatlantic slave trade because you always knew it was fake. And it made no sense to compensate somebody for a history that wasn't real. And I agree wholeheartedly to not compensate black people for a lie that is fabricated. I don't want money from a lie. It makes me as bad as a liar. I don't want money from a lie. That to me is a sinful money. I don't want it. I want money from the truth. Right? And again, I talked about why we should receive reparation. Again, white people burned down technologically advanced, wealthy black communities, redlined them, took the equity from them, displaced and made black people refugees in their own country and POWs, right? You stole patents of inventions, land lynchings, fires, burning black people on trees for their land, erasing our identity, 1924 Racial Integrity Act, while simultaneously handing our identity that very same year to Siberian and Southeast Asian and white, Slavic, Russian, Ukrainian, Austrian races or immigrants who came into America. Redlined our community, systematic oppression through gaslighting, creating financial disparities through mass incarceration, ticketing and fines, jaywalking, motor vehicle infractions, frisk and stop and frisks, police coercion and lies to get false confessions through psychological torment, traffic violation stops with falsifying evidence, drugs, events, saying that the person, racial profiling, saying that a person fits a description of a crime that never was committed. Systematic medical malpractice and experiments using our body parts, using our organs, organ trafficking, false diagnosis, misdiagnosis, medical malpractice during childbirth. Planned Parenthood was a systematic attack on the Black community. Flooding whole cities and communities under miles of bodies of water. Should I keep going? The stealing of actual inventions and patents, as I said before. Oppressing through false narratives of conceptual art of the transatlantic slave narrative, creating a sense of helplessness and post-traumatic stress syndrome as a result of police brutality. Character assassination. Dehumanization tactics. Again, creating false leaders in our community and churches to further the systematic oppression and keep Black people not knowing who they are, from their land and from the wealth that was acquired from their land. And then assassinating those very leaders you place into our communities. These are the many reasons for reparation, but the transatlantic African slave trade is not one of them. Do we now understand? I've discussed already how there are no disembarkation records to prove that we are African. There aren't any law of marque, bill of sales, tax, insurance, privateer bill of sales, records, royal decree, stamps, itemized letters to prove that we were in such transatlantic slave trade, or even that these such boats existed, period. I already did a video about inference and how all of the transatlantic slave trade's story is based from inference, including I did the video about the burial remains of over 15 to 20,000 so-called Black people's bodies being found in an actual cemetery, right? Because that's what it was, in Manhattan. That was cast, also, even with that topic, that was cast as African. Also the reason for reparations is the genetic, historical, systematic erasure of our identity using pseudoscience and DNA and anthropological, ethnology, where you erase someone's identity with pseudoscience of some fake DNA testing that literally only researches haplogroups and genetic mutations and does not give geographical locations of where, or timeline of when that haplogroup, because that's what you're searching for, got into that landmass in the first place. That's also the reason why you owe reparations, because that was also a form of reclassification using pseudoscientific genetic science that is not factual at all and cannot be substantiated biologically, genetically from any scientific study to validate it. I know, I did the research. I already explained that there is no geographic genetic single nucleotide polymorphism that can be extracted from your DNA, right? That can give you a geographical location of where you come from. DNA is paternity only. It can only tell you who, in fact, you are related to and what genetic mutation that you have, that you share with people in the same tribe, if you will, or race as you. It does not determine and has not ever determined your geographical location of origin, because DNA does not track that. There is no GPS system in your DNA. They are talking about historical markers that trap your haplogroup in certain geographical locations. And if the history is a lie, it is trapping you within origins of Africa without substantiating or fact-finding any credible evidence to prove that that is where your ancestors came from. This is how they are using genetics to tell a lie. Why do you think Ancestry.com tests always tell you 23andMe, it is for entertainment purposes only? It is genetic astrology. Thank you, Dan Calloway. It is pseudoscience. It has a connotation of intellect, but it is really stupidity. There is no genetic marker that will ever tell you that you are European, because I already been over this. If in fact there was such a genetic marker that says you are American, European, or Asian, or any kind, it debunks the out of Africa theory. Why? Because if there was such a marker that gave you origins in different country and we all belong to Africa, should I say the rest? There would only be a marker that pointed everybody to Africa. Just because Africans migrate to China, they would not develop a mutation that is Chinese. You gave China that geographical location. Given the fact that the atmosphere and the air, I'm looking for a word, given the fact that what is the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word, but the land has various seasons on it, as in America and as in every part of the world. There's no evidence at all that the land in Asia mutated someone to have an Asian phenotype. Given the fact that in Europe, the atmosphere is not different too much from that of America and any other part of the world, there is no genetic finding or science that can prove that because people left Africa and went to Europe, they mutated into a European gene. Does that make sense? There's no evidence to support that people left Africa and then mutated into other people group without other people groups already originating in those countries themselves, which would defeat and debunk the out of Africa theory. You can't have both. You can't have a genetic marker or a geographic genetic marker that points to various landmass to determine people group while simultaneously stating that there's a genetic marker that's African and all people on earth belong and came out of the primordial soups of Africa. Make that make sense. They cancel each other out. Do the math. If we have geographic, genetic markers that say we are American, African, Asian, Oceanic, Australian, European, then that debunks the out of Africa theory, because it is saying that people originated in Europe, Australia, Oceania, America, and Asia, which means that all people could not have come from Africa. Because if such markers existed, everybody would point to the landmass that is Africa. Your timeline of 20,000, a million, 20 million years is inference, or a historical reconstructive narrative, or because these are the words that they use that all just means the same thing, and that's inference, and that it's an educated guess. It's a hypothesis based on falsified historical narratives. Even your science is built around their lie. Ta-da! This is the reason why we are owed reparations. Because even your science is a genetic lie. You misinform people about their origins. You lie, you add things to their... You're even displace skeletal remains. You take them out of the country and plant them in Africa and Europe, or sometimes hand them over to a country. So you're not only grave robbing to create a false lie. I just seen a video and a couple of photos on Facebook or Instagram of Europe sending European skeletal remains of Black Europeans to Africa to further the narrative. Sending grave robbing Black Europeans, shipping their skeletal remains to Africa. They also did the same thing here in America. And that is where you got some of these mummies that they call ancient Egypt. Come on, we want to keep going into this? The rabbit hole is deep. This is why we are owed reparations. The system that lied about our identity. The systems who were so good at a lie, they didn't even go and create or produce the actual paperwork that would validate their lie. This is why God is so infinite in his wisdom. Because he knew that you would become lazy. You told us that you gave us conceptual art, the mistreatment, police brutality, pictures. You gave us a narrative, the transatlantic African slave trade. But what you couldn't give us is the documentation to support it. That is your slave ship manifests, embarkation, disembarkation records. That is your larve marquee. That was definitely needed. Your bill of sales of such ship being purchased, as well as slaves. Your royal decree, because nothing was done without a royal decree. Even privateer ships had to be funded. There is no bill of sales to prove that even privateer ships were funded, nor were there any itemized embarkation, disembarkation manifests to support such voyages. They are talked about in secondary and tertiary sources through letters that were created and invented to give way to the story being truth. All primary sources are not found. All secondary sources are substantiated through muster rolls by taking a surviving actual person on a muster roll in Virginia or any other state and having them write a story about slaves on ships was how they were making this seem like facts, and it wasn't. This is inference. This is also historical gapping, where they go in and they fill in gaps with inference. and false narratives to create a storyline based on people who actually lived, but who never wrote such stories. They also use slave narratives. Authors of these stories you will never meet. Actors are hired and paid on video and film. If slavery was abolished in 1865, then how do you have a video recording of a person born in 1930s and 20s being a slave in 1865? That is hundreds of years old. They'd be dead. Nobody facts finds any of this. People just say, yeah. That's called conceptual art, sweetheart. Conceptual arts come in movie forms as well. That is all of your white pharaohs, white Jew movies. It's conceptual art. They gave you a concept in an art piece. That is all your slave narratives. None of them can be facts found with actual primary sources, such as slave manifest, embarkation, disembarkation records. Do we now understand why there's a system in place to make sure that this information does not get out? Because the rabbit hole is so thick and so deep that if you continue to crawl down, it will expose every single lie that they did not want us to know. Again, this is why there are talks of war. This is why they are releasing Epstein file. Epstein has been raping for many years. And he's not the first. He's not the last. Why are we now talking about this? Because they can't stop the truth from being told. Distractions. The Pied Piper, Fiddler on the Roof, right? When the Romans sent the Christian out for slaughter to entertain the masses and distract them. Same thing. It's a distraction so that people are not listening to the truth tellers. I said it before and I'll say it again. These people have no home. They cannot go to Ukraine. They cannot go to Russia. The government there will not allow it. They need to remain or keep the remaining provisions prevailing in both America and Europe via transatlantic African slave trade narrative. Lies. Again, they knew that one day this would happen, that black people would realize, so-called black people would realize their identity. That's why they came up with the title, what do they call it? Black Identity Extremists. They want to turn your truth into a terrorist organization to incentivize murdering you and imprisoning you and torturing you out of your natural inherited identity of being an Aboriginal to America and some Aboriginal to Europe, or the mixture of the two. So now that we understand with ocular proof and with our deep understanding in layman terms what is going on, please feel free to comment down below. This is Kendra with Trust TV. I'm blessed to be an informant. The truth must be told, because if God is the truth and the devil is a lie, then a lie will never prevail. And again, no matter how many truth tellers you silence, more will be birthed, because God said knowledge will increase on the earth. And I don't even mean in a physical sense of birth. They will be birthed in the physical sense and in the spiritual sense. They will reject all false narratives of history, and they will learn the truth. And this is what awakening or being woke truly means. Not that political mumbo jumbo that white supremacist groups tell you. so that you can weaponize it anytime black people are treated fairly in America. Again, make sure you like, share, and subscribe.